Welcome to the history portion of our Utah Ministry training curriculum. In this section, we want to talk about the history of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And before we dive into the details of that, I want to provide us some main guiding principles and assumptions that we're going to use in every section of this session. So our first one is that we want to make sure to articulate the key points of history when it comes to the Mormon Church. Of course, you need to know what happened if you're going to deal with Mormon history. We want to explain why these are key events in Mormon history. There's a lot of things that have happened, of course, but some things stand out more than others. So what are those things and why? We need to recognize the contemporary relevance of understanding key points in Mormon history. And we need to be able to adapt this knowledge into actionable practices. Our goal with this is not just to give historical minutia or interesting trivia. You need to be able to take what we learn and talk about in this section and turn it into actionable practices when you're doing ministry with regular people who are in the LDS church currently, or who are maybe disaffected Mormons who are still struggling with questions related to the history of their religion. We also have several key assumptions that will be guiding our study of Mormon history. Now, some of these might seem to be more givens than others, but bear with me. First, we reject the central claims of the LDS Church on theological as well as on historical grounds. We reject that the God of the Bible is a deified man, as the LDS Church teaches, and that he became a God through a process of eternal progression. We reject that the God of the Bible anointed Joseph Smith as a latter-day prophet to restore the church to the earth. These rejections guide our understanding of how we're going to talk in this material about LDS history and doctrine. We assume that historical rather than theological, or God-ordained rather, factors best explain the origins of the LDS Church and its practices throughout history. We do this recognizing, however, that the Mormons are a thoroughly historical people, and this is something that we'll probably talk a little bit more about in our sections on LDS culture. But Mormonism has a very clear sacred history, which makes it such an important point of discussion with them. A robust understanding of faithful Mormons living today cannot be divorced from an understanding of the history of how they got to be where they are now, and how they think today, how they speak today, and how we minister to them here in the Mormon corridor. So here are the takeaways from our introductory section. One of our most important and main goals is that we're not simply providing you historical minutia or trivia, but that we're providing you actionable information that will help influence your understanding of Mormons and Mormonism, and that will guide your conversations well with real people you meet in real life. And while we recognize that God can work through historical circumstances, our guiding star is that Joseph Smith is not a prophet of God, and that the church that he founded is not the restoration it claimed to be. We think historical circumstances better explain the origin of Mormonism than divine circumstances. So we're going to discuss in our first major upcoming session precisely this, the religious and cultural background of Joseph Smith's day.